So why is it called object-oriented programming? Well, let's start at the beginning. There are two types of programming paradigms. The first is procedural programming, and that's when you have functions operating on data. And the second type is the object-oriented programming, where objects are created and they contain the data and the functions within the objects. It's going to sound abstract now, but after a bit of experience programming, you'll come to appreciate the difference between procedural programming and object-oriented programming. But it's nice to know the formalism up front so that in a few weeks you can revisit this and check your understanding of these two programming paradigms. So this class is in C++, and it begs the question, what is C++? How did C++ come to be? So C++ was developed in the 80s by a single person named Bjarne Stroustrup. Bjarne Stroustrup was an experienced programmer. He'd been programming in C and programming in other languages, but he was really frustrated by one thing, which is it took many years for his ideas to go from something in his mind to something functional and operating in the real world. And so he had this goal. He wanted to develop a language where he could go from an idea to the implementation of that idea in 6 months. And so that was his philosophy when he came to design C++. In order to get that to happen, he had to introduce several things into programming languages, which before then really hadn't existed. These are three things. These are the three key features that distinguish C++. One is flexibility. So it allows the programmer to code using the procedural programming paradigm, so the programming paradigm that everyone had been used to up until that time. And it also allows programmers to program in a different way using object-oriented programming. And so what that means is that it made code a lot neater. It made it much easier to compartmentalize and to work with. And so instead of feeling one's working with a project with tens of thousands of lines of code, you felt that the project was much smaller and much easier to manage. The second feature of C++ is efficiency. It has a lot of capabilities in terms of managing memory, and we'll actually be exposed to some of that during this class. The third feature of C++ is performance. So it allows for certain kinds of encode optimizations, which we'll also be covering in this class. So you might be wondering, where is C++ used? And it's used in many, many, many different places, one of which is the Firefox browser and a lot of code and projects that the Mozilla Foundation does. Another place where it's used is in CAD software, so computer-aided design software. These are often written in C++. A third place is in games. So there's an open source version of Roller Coaster Tycoon, if anyone likes to play that, has an open source implementation in C++. Also the Swift programming language, so if you wanted to develop apps on the iPhone, the Swift programming language was actually based on C++. And if you're in the world of data management, one of the most popular database frameworks and database languages, MySQL, is in C++. And lastly, Bitcoin is actually the framework for Bitcoin, and for many cryptocurrencies is written in C++. And in fact, all those examples that I gave you, Bitcoin, MySQL, Swift, PC games, CAD software, and Mozilla code, you can actually check it out for yourself. You can actually go to those websites. So for example, this is the Mozilla website, and you can get access to some of the core layers of the Firefox browser, which is developed in C++, and you can actually look at their code. You can also find CAD software online. This is one example of FreeCAD, which is all programmed in C++. You can even, if you're interested in downloading a PC game programmed in C++, you can do that and take a look at it. Swift programming language, you can also access it on its main page and take a look at the code base there. And you can even do that with Bitcoin. So you can actually get access to their code base, you can look at it, and you can see that it's written in C++. Now, what's really, really exciting about this is that if you have these examples in mind, if you're interested in programming for iOS, if you're interested in programming your own game, hopefully some of the skills that you'll be developing in this class will help you reach those goals. This class is meant to be a good foundation of the key concepts in C++ that opens up huge opportunities for you to engage in different C++ programming projects and even in programming languages beyond C++.